Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, hi everyone. Hello. Really excited to welcome you all to our conversation today about how we can advance post-secondary leadership as we are collectively engaged in work across the country focused on building equitable education to career pathway systems and really thinking about how we can transform our education systems to better serve workers and learners. My name is Charlotte Cahill. I'm an Associate Vice President in the Education Practice at Jobs for the Future. I think many of you are probably familiar with JFF, but perhaps not all. So wanted to give just a very quick overview before we welcome our speakers. JFF is a national nonprofit organization. We've been around for about 40 years. We've just celebrated our 40th anniversary. And throughout that time, we've really been focused on driving transformation across the US education and workforce systems in order to achieve equitable advancement for all. And that work has included more than a decade of work with our Pathways to Prosperity partners across the country. Our partners are leaders in education and workforce systems who are working to design and scale education to career pathways. My colleague Kyle Hartung will be moderating our panel today, and I co-lead our Pathways to Prosperity work and work with many of you and others across the country to really think about building out these equitable pathways systems that are connecting more young people to good jobs. And we know as we do this work that it requires all of us working together across sectors, which will be one of our big themes for today. We work with both policymakers and practitioners, and we work at the local, regional, state, and national levels to design solutions, to scale best practices, and to advocate for policies and practices that we know work, while also seeking to drive innovation and invest in new solutions. And we know that in all of this work, post-secondary institutions and systems have a really critical role to play in building education to career pathways and pathways systems that are creating new opportunities for young people. So for today, we've invited several leaders of community colleges that are just really incredible leaders in this pathways space for a conversation about that key role for post-secondary institutions and systems. We're looking forward to digging into a conversation with them, both about the work they're already doing, and as we kind of look to the horizon and think about what's next in this pathway space, really trying to understand better the opportunities and challenges ahead of us too. And just to say, we got to know these leaders and all of the amazing work they're doing through a series of 4 Unlocking Pathways summits that we had the honor of partnering with the US Department of Education to host last summer and fall. And so to share more about that work and to really sort of officially kick off our event today, I'm really excited to introduce Amy Lloyd, the Assistant Secretary for the Office of Career, Technical, and Adult Education at the US Department of Education, to just say a little bit more about that work. Amy, take it away.
Cache, buenos dias. Hi, everyone. Thank you, Charlotte. And first and foremost, thank you, JFF, for being such fantastic partners to us and for allowing me to share a little bit about why today's webinar matters so much to me, to all of us here at the US Department of Education, and frankly, to our nation. As Charlotte mentioned, I have the honor of serving as the Assistant Secretary in OCTAE. And if you're not familiar with my office, all of our work sits at the exciting, essential intersection of education, workforce development, and economic development. And for far too long, our country has treated education and workforce development as 2 separate things. And this mindset has left countless students behind. It's left so much unactualized potential on the table for our workforce, and it's time for us to better align and integrate the 2. And that's why we in the Biden-Harris administration, we are all in on reimagining multiple pathways to success through boundary spanning, line blurring, career and college pathways. And by college, I mean the full array of post-secondary opportunities, including, of course, first and foremost, our community colleges, registered apprenticeship, industry credentials that we know are directly responsive to labor market needs and the future of work. And we know that we have to transform our education system so that all students, our students in rural communities, students from low-income backgrounds, students of color, students with disabilities, students who are English learners, students who might be the very first in their family to graduate from high school or the first to go on to college. We want all students to have what they need to have rewarding, joyful, and choice-filled futures. And to advance this work, the Department of Education, in partnership with the Departments of Labor and Commerce, launched this nationwide initiative that Charlotte mentioned called Unlocking Career Success. This advances our bold vision that every single student, not just those fortunate to be in high-quality career and technical education, but every single student will be on a career pathway in high school that includes graduating with 4 keys to unlocking career success. 1, earning college credit. 2, real-world workplace experience, ideally paid. 3, an industry credential that they can use. And 4, a plan to achieve their career ambitions through personalized career navigations and supports and counseling and advising. So we were thrilled to partner with JFF this summer and fall to co-design and co-host those 4 national Unlocking Pathways summits to galvanize and mobilize the field around this reimagination of career and college pathways for all. And we held our 4 summits at the 4 excellent community colleges you're going to be hearing from today. It's no surprise that we deliberately sought out community colleges to be the hub of our summits. They are the power hubs for our Pathways work, and they are our nation's leaders in understanding and frankly bringing to life how education is workforce development. And I love how community colleges are often at the heart of our communities. They are that power hub across diverse stakeholders. They forge collaborative partnerships with K-12, 4 years, business and industry, workforce development, community-based orgs, local government, and more. And they lead in diversity, equity, inclusion, and excellence. They are lifelines to opportunity for students who are juggling work and family beyond school, for anybody who's seeking the skills and credentials that will help them advance and achieve their goals. And they have a proven track record of providing high quality career pathways to great jobs and to higher wages, and they do so for all students. So I love to think about how community colleges meet workers and learners of all walks of life where they are on the journey and help them to get to be where they dream to be. I went to 2 different community colleges myself, and I know firsthand the power they have in transforming lives. So thanks to the Investing in America work, we're experiencing record low unemployment, labor shortages nationwide, and this tidal wave of new jobs to grow our economy in key areas. And we must work together differently to prepare talent pipelines, to create pathways to these great jobs. And community colleges, frankly, are the vital leaders that we need to ensure that we have the vibrant, diverse, talented workforce to continue to thrive into the future. So the 4 colleges you'll hear from today are really special places. They are truly engines of workforce and economic development. They're truly helping us all to reimagine what's possible for our students and their families, for our communities and our future. So on behalf of Secretary Cardona and all of us here at the U.S. Department of Education, thank you, gracias el agua, to JFF and to the 4 colleges for all that you're doing in career and college pathways and unlocking career success. Over to you, Kyle.
Thank you very much, Amy. And thank you so much again for welcoming us here today. I'm just going to take a brief minute and introduce you by name and association with our esteemed panelists today and get you going. As Charlotte mentioned earlier, my name is Kyle Hartung. My pronouns are he, him. I'm an associate vice president here. And with Charlotte, I co-lead our Pathways to Prosperity work. So it's a real honor and pleasure for us to welcome our panelists today. We have Dr. Cedric Bradley, who is the vice president at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. Welcome, Cedric. Dr. Mordecai Brownlee, president at the Community College of Aurora. Mordecai, welcome. Good to see you again here today. Dr. Jack Daniels, president of Madison Area Technical College. Always great to see you, Dr. Daniels. And Dr. Yoshiko Harden, president of Renton Technical College. I'm going to bring you all to the stage. Thank you all so much for joining. And we're going to let your voices and your words speak to a little bit about why you're here to join us today. And I'd love to just dive right in. So I have 3 really big, broad themes I would love for you all to engage in a conversation with us here today about. And this first one is to talk with us a little bit about our current practices. And as we think about this work and as we think about the current state of the Pathways field, we've collectively been at this for a while, but really thinking about this idea of advancing post-secondary leadership that we heard at these summits over the summer and that we want to carry forward into an ongoing conversation this year. Wanting you to talk with us a little bit today about how you are partnering and ultimately working differently with your K-12 partners, as well as other training and support providers like community-based organizations and intermediary organizations, that is working to create seamless opportunities for young people to transition into post-secondary credentials that will lead to good jobs? And how are you thinking about the ROI for your institutions in engaging in these broader pathway efforts? Any one of you can just jump in and say, I'm ready for that one, Kyle. Otherwise, I'll cold call you. Dr. Harden, do you want to hop on that one?
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you.
So thank you again for the invitation to join this panel and be in community virtually with all of you. I appreciate it. Again, I'm Yoshiko Harden, president of Renton Technical College, which is next to Seattle in Washington, the other Washington. If you're on the East Coast, we're on the other coast. And I'm in my second year presidency here. So I think the top of mind for me probably are promise programs. So I think that's a great opportunity. And I'm a big advocate of promise programs in terms of a seamless pathway. The two colleges and promise programs I've worked on or led have really changed the enrollment patterns for schools in our service area and really help kind of mitigate that unknown or stigma associated with community and technical college. So for example, we are piloting a Renton Promise here. We got some seed money in our last legislative session, and we're in the fall quarter of the Renton Promise. So if you're a graduate from our 5 high schools in Renton, of course, it's a last dollar scholarship. We have 85 students for fall quarter. Comparatively from Renton High School school districts, we would have 50 over the entire academic year. So that is really a game changer for us. And also we're seeing things like increases in Running Start, right? Because they're talking to their friends in the school. And as a technical college, translating Running Start or dual enrollment is a challenge different than when I worked at kind of comprehensive community and technical colleges. So I'll kind of leave that right there. I think more we can do around regional impact with city, business, industry, and philanthropy to support promise type programs, I think really help that transition. And students I spoke to, they either wanted to go to college, but didn't want to be a burden to their parents. And so when they found out about promise, they were like, oh, this is for me. Or they had a plan to go to college, but didn't have a plan how to pay for it. And so I think that it can meet two needs from, an 18-year-old getting out of high school who wants to be on their own and doesn't want to, I'll use their language, be a burden anymore, they thought it's their time to contribute back economically to the family. And lastly, in terms of return on investment, I think for community and technical colleges or technical college, I was looking at a 2019 college scorecard report just in preparation for this panel. And one of the things it was saying was that early on, it's a high return of investment with a degree or certificate from a community and technical college. But after 10 years, the bachelor starts to outpace that. Right. And so for me as the president, and this has been a concern of mine, is that I don't want to just prepare folks for entry level or medium wage jobs that kind of sunset and there's not then room for growth. Right. So you can go into medical assisting or medical terminology. And are you stuck there, in terms of the lifetime earnings? So I think those are conversations I'm engaged in and would be excited to hear from other presidents who are further along in that discussion or just what you're doing at your colleges. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that opening salvo. Mordecai, I see your hand up. Did you want to hop in on that one? What
Yeah,
are
I'll
your
hop
current
right
practices?
in.
How are you partnering? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I think President Harden really set the tone there. Thank you again, Kyle. Thank you, Dr. Lord, for the work that you all do. I'll say here at the Community College of Aurora, we've been all about that conversation about social and economic mobility. And I'm sure that there are so many that are on this call that are having those similar conversations because that's the reason why you're here. For us, it's been really taking a look at the data and the information from an economic standpoint, socioeconomic standpoint, the impacts of what's really been happening in our communities post-pandemic. And really, I'm sure all of us can agree on this call that the pandemic really wreaked hell in our communities. And bouncing back from that, especially as we think about the first generation students, students of color, the need to truly transition many of these prospective students to those that are able to truly put food on their family's table in this very disruptive market has really been driving a lot of these conversations. From a socioeconomic standpoint, we've really had to take a look at the college going rate that has been in a steady decline in our communities, and really asking, where do those partnerships with our K-12 entities really look like? Now, granted, here at the Community College of Aurora, 53% of our students are actually concurrent enrollment. So we're the #1 provider here in the state of Colorado, in the Colorado Community College system, for concurrent enrollment. We're also the most diverse college in the entire state of Colorado. So 67% of our students are students of color. And then remarkably, 53% of our students are first generation. So that is really driving us in terms of a responsibility in regards to what we should be doing. Career navigation is one of those pieces I want to bring to the forefront for us, because truly bringing about a sense of relevance in the classroom in terms of what that student is instructionally experiencing and how that leads to what we would call success for them and their families' economic mobility has really been where we've leaned forward. We've been partnering with our K-12 partners and taking a look in terms of conversations as early as elementary. We've been going to the high schools, we've been going to the middle schools, we've been going to the elementary schools. And you can imagine the messaging in those different spaces are a bit different. I've went to the elementary schools, I bring the mascot, I'm throwing gifts out there to the kids, and I know I've got a 30-second time span in terms of what my impact is going to be. A bit different than in middle schools, really thinking about, what do you see for yourself? What is it that you're interested in? But beginning to have those conversations about career pathways and thinking about as early as that 9th grade freshman year of high school, how we begin to get them engaged in concurrent enrollment. We have to think about the equity gap closure opportunities that are present in our high schools, the career navigation opportunities that are present in our high schools, and really taking a look at experiential learning and learning outside the classroom that can really expose students, especially first generation students, to pathways that no one in their family have realized that truly can be a change in trajectory for that family. So that's been a lot of the work that we've been doing at CCA.
Hey,
Thank
Cal.
you for that. Cedric, I saw you come off mute. Yeah, come on in there.
Yeah. Hey, once again, Cal, thank you all so much for giving us an opportunity to speak with y'all today. Cedric Bradley, I serve as Vice President at Mississippi Gulf Coast Community College. We're located at the very southern part of Mississippi, the 4 southern counties there. And I'll just mention briefly a couple of partnerships that we have that we're working to try to expand this work. One partnership is with Goodwill Industries. One of the things that we're doing with Goodwill, we've partnered with Goodwill, in which Goodwill is actually located on one of our campuses. We're in a pilot phase with that right now. What they're doing is they've created what's called the Goodwill Career Connection Center. And what that does is allowing individuals who actually come to Goodwill, they're providing them with that comprehensive support and resources so they can seek enhanced career opportunities. But the great part about that partnership is because Goodwill is located right there on our campus, in many cases, we know that when individuals are going to Goodwill, they're probably in some type of situation that they want to improve their life in some way. And so when they come to Goodwill, they're working directly hand in hand with our student support services. So it's a great handoff. So when they come to Goodwill to get those services, Goodwill is able to take them right across the hallway to try to help them to get enrolled in classes and all of those things. So hopefully they can get into a major that's going to help them to go and lead to a great job that's going to provide family sustaining wages for their families. Another partnership that we're doing, just like many of my colleagues here on the panel, we continue to partner with our high schools. And one unique program that we have is what's called our Collegiate Academy program. At Gulf Coast Community College, we have about 10,000 or so credit students, but dual enrolled, dual credit students make up about probably about 2,000 of our students are dual enrolled, dual credit students. And so what we're doing with them is we have a Collegiate Academy program in which those students are able to come and actually start becoming full-time students, full-time college students in the 11th grade. And as they are full-time college students, they're also full-time high school students. And they are actually graduating with their associate's degrees probably about 2 weeks before they actually get their high school diploma. But the unique thing about that is in many cases, we know dual credit, dual enrollment, a lot of times students are just taking classes to take classes. And we want to make sure that students are not just taking classes to take classes, but we're making sure that they're on a pathway where they're either going to allow them to get into a career technical program where those classes are going to lead to a job once they graduate, or they're on some type of transfer pathway in which we know that those credits are going to transfer to whatever university that they're looking to transfer to. So those are just a couple of partnerships that we're doing at Gulf Coast Community College.
Thanks for bringing in the partnership angle. Dr. Daniels, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing in the Madison region with partnerships and the vision that you have around how do you move young people into these programs and through into their next best opportunities?
Well, Cal, thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation. I also appreciate Amy's opening comments because I think they're directly on point as we think about our young folks who are actually getting trained and going into the workforce. But I think it's also key to understand, especially in the state of Wisconsin and in Madison, that the demand is huge, yet we have declining population. And when you got both of those actually operating at the same time, really becomes very difficult to maintain a quality workforce within the area in which we are. I think it's also key as we think about these partnerships is to have good buy-in up and down the whole spectrum. And I think about not just from the K-12 perspective, but from business and industry. And as we have many advisory councils throughout our college, they also help us as we're thinking about how do we move from point A to point B. A couple of programs really come to mind. And trying to understand Madison College, we are a comprehensive technical institution, and we serve about 32,000 students. And as we think about that, we serve over 40 school districts. The main school district is Madison Metropolitan School District. We developed a program with them, which we would call the STEM Academy, knowing that, number one, we have a dearth of folks who are folks of color and females who are going into the STEM field. We also know that in Madison Metropolitan School District, a majority of those students are students of color and female, and they are not moving into that arena. So about 6 years ago, we developed a STEM Academy. Those students actually, and they're 200, 100 juniors, 100 seniors, and we continue to evolve them throughout the process. They actually take their classes on our college campus, and they're taking transfer level classes. So as they move through their process, what's happening is that they are actually gaining college units. 25% of those students who have gone through the program actually will graduate with their high school diploma and an AA or an AS and enter into that university at third-year status. And if we talk about affordability, we talking about the ability to get those skills earlier, we are actually seeing that evidence. Approximately 600 have gone through this program already. And we've actually expanded the STEM Academy to other districts within our college district. That's essential for us to serve the community need. And that involvement has really been able to expand other academies, not just in STEM. We have an education academy. We're looking at a business academy. So there's many different ways from which you can develop this type of academy. When we think about the community-based organizations, I think Madison, in many ways, is different than other organizations or other institutions. We have over 3,000 nonprofits within the Madison-Dane County area. Many of those nonprofits are serving those communities which have traditionally not had access to our institutions. We have developed programs whereby they will have access. They do recruitment, we get access, and they come to our programs. And we have those dual enrollments. I know in some states we call them concurrent enrollment, from which we're bringing those students in, or we're going actually to the school to provide for facilitate learning for those students. There is a community-based organization. Its name is Centro Hispano. Centro is a major Latino organization within the city, and we have developed programs with them, especially in the field of healthcare, and also partnering with the major health organization in Madison, which is UW Health. And so as we train students to go through that program, they actually get employment as they move into UW Health. Those types of partnerships are huge as we talk about increasing the ability of students to move forward. We also, especially in healthcare, from a different perspective of working with incumbent workers in those providers. So we have actually developed 2 apprentice programs for nursing and for ophthalmology with 2 of our providers. So we are training individuals who are incumbent workers within those providers, and at the end of the day, they still have their job. They're getting paid from those providers, and then they will move into what they have been trained for. Is it ophthalmology or is it nursing? Again, that's a huge win for folks who are in the organization, as well as how they can actually attract individuals to go into those positions. I think the last point, and I'm sure other of my colleagues also have programs that have guaranteed enrollment into the 4-year institutions. And so many of the programs that we're developing is the pathway from students coming into our college, let's say from the K-12 or from juniors and seniors, to our programs. Then they can actually have guaranteed enrollment to the 4-year institution, be it in engineering, be it in the healthcare industry, business, education, many of those that the University of Madison actually offers, as well as other institutions within the country. So when you think about the ROI, the return on investment for us, it's doing what we do, serving our community, serving the needs, and actually impacting economic development, which has a direct relationship to community development.
I love that point, and I'd love to stay here for a minute and call back in our other panelists to this point. And I'm hearing a little bit of a theme across, excuse me, all of your comments a little bit, where it is laying bare the complexity of the ecosystem of which you're a part. And I suspect that there's a lot of folks on this webinar today who are working from one of the other sides of that, right? Like they might represent a district or a particular CBO organization or a partner training. But when I hear you talking, you're thinking about serving a broader community base. It's in-school youth, it might be out-of-school youth, it might be adults with some education but no degree, it might be incumbent workers. What advice do you have for the folks on this call today about how to better engage with their community college partners as partners, rather than going to you and nibbling you to death like by goldfish, so to speak, right? Like, what advice do you have for us about how do we hold constant the complexity that you're dealing with, knowing that you want to be really good partners to the whole community here?
I'll jump in there and just say thank you for the question, Kyle. It is so important that our partners that are on the call truly study and be aware, if they already are not, of the realities that are facing some of our community colleges, depending upon where they are in the country. Here in the state of Colorado, beautiful Colorado, but for those that don't know, we're ranked 49th in higher ed funding. Our K-12 school system is ranked 48th in the country in their funding realities. And so I say that to say, when we think about workforce development, it's not necessarily a space where we are funded for workforce development. So for us, we're eager to find partners who have resources, funding that can come about. We have the faculty, we have the instructors, we have the adjunct instructors, we have the infrastructure to support some of those mechanisms. But as we think about even micro-credentials, just this year, we rolled out 4 micro-credentials for our institution, the very first 4 that we've ever engaged with. But we needed strong industry partners to come along and walk that path with us. And it was very important to us especially thinking about who we serve, that there be a strong return for students that engage, learners that engage with these micro credentials. Because if it's not transforming, changing their realities on the grading metrics for these hiring of these particular positions, then truly they're sitting there with a micro credential completed, hoping that the industry partner is adding value or seeing value in the credential that they now hold. So I say all that to say, workforce development for us has to be very creative. We want to work with partners. We want to lean forward, but sometimes it cannot be done with the assumption that we have certain funding mechanisms available to us to make that a reality today.
Yeah, Kyle, can I speak to that just from a technical college point of view? Because, you know, I always say you eat kind of off the transfer side. So our margin around these prof tech programs, you know, a lot of this pathways literature that we talk about is really built from professional technical, cohort based, not a lot of selection process for students, you know, very small classes, very focused on what you're going to get at the end. And I think for us, trying to stay current with our technology or welding, or we have an automotive technology program. And so like moving from combustion engines to, you know, EV, right? That's the kind of the future, being more dynamic. We don't have a real process to like be super dynamic now. And how do we teach students on the latest EV type vehicles? So we have a partnership with Rivian, which has been great that we're launching, because a lot of this curriculum, of course, is proprietary. So it's right. So they have come. So if you want to be a good partner, it's great if you come to us with something on the table. So we're providing the facility. We had to put in these big lifts, but they have the vehicles here. And although they have their curriculum, our students that come out of our automotive technology program can go into the Rivian program. It's a 5-month program. And it's also open to other automotive programs or just technicians in our region. So those types of, so, you know, you can get, it's like getting, you know, you can get the general prescription or the specific, right? It's like getting that specific training on that type of technology makes them more competitive when they get into the workforce, right? Versus a general. So that's a really beneficial partnership. So I feel like partnerships need to be mutually beneficial. You know, all money ain't good money. You know, I tell my team, we're not out here chasing money necessarily. It needs to be in, you know, mission alignment and really like, how is this is this what our community wants? And will it really help them do what they want to do? And so I'm excited to see how this partnership develops and others, you know, so that's my add-on to that. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that. Cedric, what's happening in Mississippi? How are you thinking about this? What's some advice that you could share?
I think Dr. Brownlee and Dr. Horn, they basically hit it on the nail there. You know, I think one of the most important things is that communication piece. And if the industry is if there's a need, we also need to know, how is this going to benefit our students? You know, what will our students get out of this? And I'll use an example that Dr. Harden was just using with automotive. Just recently, we decided to revamp our automotive technology curriculum based on what the industry was telling us. And what we told the industry is, what will our students get out of this when we choose to revamp our curriculum? And what happened with this, in this instance, is that where our automotive students, where they used to go to school 4 days a week for 3 semesters, and then they got their degrees and everything like that. They're going to go to school 4 days a week during their first semester. And then once that second and third semester starts, they're actually going to be serving as internships, apprenticeships with our local automotive industry. So now what's happening now is that these students are able to get a little money in their pocket while they're going to school, but also it's going to help our industry partners in the sense of they're actually training these individuals that they're going to hire once they graduate. And so it's kind of win-win for both of us. It's helping our students and it's helping the industry as well, because they're getting those bodies into their automotive shops. They're getting their bodies in those automotive shops to where they can train these individuals. So once they graduate, they kind of have a leg up above the individuals who did not go through this same type of training. So it's just important for us to keep that communication piece. And as Dr. Harden said, you know, it has to be mutually beneficial for both groups.
I couldn't agree more. I think it has to be mutually beneficial. The communication is key. The communication is two-way. One of the ways that we've done at our institution is to bring employers on the campus for them to actually experience what do we have available. As they become more comfortable with that, they become comfortable with now what are we actually producing? What's the outcome of our students? And that's where that advisory committee has played a huge part in all of our programs in terms of setting curriculum that is going to be current and up to date for what they need, as well as what are the equipment needs that they're going to be focusing in on. And we've had some very good opportunities, and I don't want to call it luck, but I think we've done very well in getting some of the equipment that we needed from our industry partners, as well as they have actually participated very strongly when we actually go out for funding. And so that's been key, getting the employers there, the engagement, and having it two-way.
Thank you for that, the rounding out this piece of the conversation. And I actually want to use this as a way to go back to something. Dr. Hardin, you kind of brought this up maybe in slightly different words at the beginning, but I want to put this back into the centerpiece right now, which is a broader conversation around systems that have no dead ends for young people. And it's real easy to lose sight of that. Like whether we're talking with young people in middle grades or high school being seen as a destination, and then maybe there's some form of post-secondary education or not, but that's not my problem, right? And so I'm curious, and so much of the of historical pathways work rightfully has often been driven by the K-12 side, really trying to create a stronger connection point to support young people moving from high school into their first post-secondary education experience. But from your vantage point, what is the real role? And maybe this is a little bit of provocation, so it's not just about what are you doing, but what do you think the field needs to be doing to reckon with post-secondary's role in creating a system of education and career pathways that truly has no dead ends, so that it's really easy to enter and move into and out of your programs or other programs, knowing how to get back in. So we're really thinking around not even just like lifelong learning, but what's the vision around life-wide learning that allows people at any age to come into and out of these systems? And what is the role of post-secondary in leading from that place?
Do you want me to kick it off, Kyle? I'll just say a couple.
Take it away. Take it away.
I'm a president, so you know I love to talk. So I'm going to be generous.
That is why you're here. That is why you're here. Bring it. Bring it.
So I had the opportunity to hear author Levine speak, you know, the co-author of the book, The Great Upheaval, around the stage we're in with higher education and how everything's changed. And I think I'll speak from just my perspective in my state, because I know we're all in different contexts, but I think we just have to like rethink everything, you know. I need to rethink everything, and I need to rethink it in a way. I have lots of schooling, but I was schooled in a very traditional, it's front loaded. You're in the seat, you get all the theory, all the seminal works, and then at the end, you're ready to move on. And one of the things they say in the book is that people, you know, the way we consume education is totally different. So people want their education like we get our music and our TV, right? You want it unbundled, or you want to be able to binge. Right. So I have a 16, 19 and 22-year-old. They go to, I won't name it, they go to the web and Google how to do the thing. And then they watch that particular segment or go through it. And then they come back and do it. And then they go back out. They're not sitting there for 10 or 15 hours to get all of the things that are important under this subject. It's very specific. And so that's how I mean, like me and my leadership, I mean, we need to rethink and change how we're doing it. And we're doing it here a little bit there, but like really being okay with getting out of our comfort zone and taking some bigger risks, I think will be important. I think for RTC, we just have to be much more porous, that students can kind of, you know, that upskill, reskill, that they can kind of come in and out. So maybe you go work in the field, and maybe then you come back in and get a stackable credential and you can go back out. I think there was a note in here around apprenticeships. We have several apprenticeship partners on our campus. And one of the things that we've done, which I think is really exciting and want to expand on, is students can add an extra quarter, or they can build in additional classes, and then they can come out with their journeyman, but also with their AAS, right? Because carpentry, construction, those over time really can wear the body out, right? You can sunset out. So this gives them that other degree. And then we have a partnership with a 4-year college so that they can do their bachelor's more in construction management. So what if they want to start their own thing or go into management? So I think in terms of lifetime or life-wide, things that are already kind of built in, maybe you didn't need it at the time, but you earned it as part of your experience. And then, you know, you just have more opportunities. So I just, one of the things that keeps me up at night is people getting stuck, you know, and not having a chance to start their own business or have that degree or credential to do something else still in their field. So I think I think we just need to rethink it. And not, I'm just speaking to myself here, you know, I'm sure it's been rethought, but just be much more dynamic.
I would agree with that. And I want to take a little different perspective and move away from the course structure. Because our students coming in are more than just course takers. They're more than just looking for their careers. They need support. And oftentimes we miss the wraparound services that students are going to need to progress, to be retained. Many of our students may come because they get overwhelmed coming into the college itself, because it's a different environment. It's different from where they're coming from. What are we providing internally that helps them along that pathway? Many of our students have the same type of issues and problems that the general population has. We could talk homelessness. We could talk about food insecurity. We could talk about housing. All of those impact their ability to be successful. So I think we have to talk more about what those services are that provides them to go along that pathway and be successful to whatever outcome that they're looking for. And I think we're doing some of that work right now. It is about rethinking what we do. The pandemic put us in a position. So what did we learn, and what's the opportunities that came from that we can turn into making that move and taking that next corner or road?
Mordecai, I see you putting the finger up there. How are you taking that next corner? What are you looking at?
You know,
what's keeping you up at night?
Well, what's keeping me up at night is that, in my personal opinion, I don't think that higher education is moving fast enough. I think that we've created some systems. I think higher education in this country has been around roughly 387 years. I don't think that higher education has ever had to ask of itself in this particular country its relevance. And I think that for the very first time, higher education is having to determine its relevance. And what does that look like? And so I would say, in terms of the no dead ends, I was just making notes here on some of the things I would say. There's some of these elements of having a student-centered college that we need to truly embrace now more than ever. One of those would be, in terms of ensuring no dead ends, we need to look at our college applications. If we're utilizing these college applications as a manner to truly bring about workforce development opportunities for work-based learning, you may be serving students that may have an 8th grade reading level. However, if the readability score of your college application is at a 14th grade reading level, you just created a barrier towards their true realities of economic mobility. I already saw from President Daniels, we talked about food insecurity, housing insecurity, certainly childcare. I thought I saw Dr. Harden put those in. Those are all other realities. I would also say, truly, taking a look at these advisory councils that we've been implementing at our respective colleges. It's more than just wining and dining folks and industry partners to come in and have conversations about what's evolving in their spaces. Again, relevance. If we aren't creating relevant learning opportunities for the students that we're seeking to serve, one of two things is going to happen. Either our true enemy, which is poverty, is going to continue to wreak havoc in our communities, Or B, as our industry partners have a need for workforce development to truly take place, if higher education cannot respond, they'll continue to do what they've been doing, and that is work around our systems to craft and create and grow their own workforce. So I think that the responsibility now is higher than it's ever been, the need for responsiveness. I think 2024 is going to be that very pivotal year in higher education where it's going to truly prove who can rise to the occasion to meet the needs of their students. As Dr. Harden already called out, being mission-centered, using the proper data to measure our impact on our communities, and not just continue to give these narratives of success that are truly not transforming lives in our communities.
Dr. Bradley?
Yeah, Cal, just to add on to what everyone else is saying, I think when you look at those successful education to career pathways, you have to ensure, and this is, I'm just kind of piggybacking off of what everyone else has said, but you have to ensure that you have faculty, you have the administrators, and you have all of those community industry partners. Everyone has to be involved when you're trying to do that. And that includes everything from the coursework to the curriculum, to certifications, credentials, all of that. We need to ensure that we are talking with our industry partners, and our industry partners are helping to drive those conversations. So when our students graduate, they're not only successful, but they're going to be valuable employees as well. And Dr. Harden sort of mentioned this about making sure that students can, if they stop, they can get back in where they don't have to change careers. And I think that's something else we have to keep in mind as well with those stackable credentials, making sure that we can have an exit point for students that makes sense. So when you have that exit point, they're leaving with some type of credential or certification that's going to help them to get a job. But then when they get ready to come back, we allow for them to have an easy transition to come back to continue that education. And then also just one thing that we're doing at Gulf Coast Community College is that, of course, years past, if you were pursuing a career technical route, that was kind of a terminal degree. If you got an associate's degree in a career technical field, that was a terminal degree. What we've done is created articulation agreements with all of our IHL universities in Mississippi that if I'm a student, if I graduate with my associate's degree in welding, that's going to allow me to go and get a great job right then and there because I need to provide for my family. But 5 years down the line, you know what? I'm looking at this managerial route that I would, or managerial job that I would like to pursue, but I don't have a bachelor's degree. And to keep me from having to start all the way back over and pursue a university transfer route, we've created partnerships with all of our universities to where they actually accept all 60 credit hours for our students who pursue that career and technical field, to where those students can go and actually get a Bachelor of Applied Science that's going to allow them to move into those supervisory positions and managerial positions. So as Dr. Harden mentioned, we want to make sure that if a student does stop, there's a way that that student can continue when he or she decides to continue. Because at the end of the day, every student, some of these folks, a lot of students are trying to get a job so they can improve the lives of their families. They don't have time at this point to go and get a 4-year degree, but down the line, after they have improved their quality of life with that associate's degree that they've gotten, we want to make sure that they have a way to continue to pursue that education. And as Dr. Brownlee said, want to make sure that we continue to show that higher education is relevant, and those are some things that we're trying to do.
So I'm going to pick up on this last point you're making, and it's going to be a little bit of like a final word. And I'm going to go from on my screen right to left. So we're going to start with you, Dr. Daniels, and move over to Dr. Harden. But this point, this has been coming up iteratively through all of the comments I've heard. Right, there are these decision points that people are confronted with continually, and the importance of the range of supports that learners need that are beyond academics, if we're really going to fulfill a promise around a destination of good jobs and security. But right now, I think at scale, individuals and families are carrying the burden of having to know what to do and how to access those things. So my sort of final word question for you, and we'll start with you, Dr. Daniels, is what do you see as the most important step that post-secondary institutions and systems need to take to shift the burden from individuals to the systems or institutions themselves? Like, how do we take on the burden of all of the mechanics of this to really support people to get to the destination we want them to get to?
Cal, excellent question. And what I'm thinking through are several things. I think about the issue that Dr. Brownlee brings up about relevance, and how can you actually have those powers to be, if you will, understand what is the relevance of this education as it relates to this, to the student and to their job. But I also have to put on the table culture and the understanding of the culture in which our students, but the communities are in, and what those needs are. Every one of our students have different life experiences. And how do we actually address some of those life experiences, which then can progress them to further learning, job, those types of things that is going to help that family? Not understanding the culture is problematic, because there's not an understanding of what the need is and how can we start to meet that need. And that's, I think, is a huge point in terms of how do we progress ourselves as this post-secondary institution, helping to serve that community. What I also find is, what is the relationship between the community and the business, the residential community and the business? They are needs on both, from which we can bring together and hopefully bind them together, which on both sides of that is the issue of relevance. And I think if we start from that point, I think that actually adds to our ability to serve our communities much better.
Thank you for that. Dr. Brownlee, you're next on my, Dr. Hart, did you want to go? You can hop in.
Oh,
right
no,
in.
sorry. I
We'll
thought
go
you
in
said my
different
name.
order.
Go ahead, Dr. Brownlee, because then I'll steal some of your good ideas. You go first.
Thank you,
You know,
Madam President. I think that it is so essential that we, as a community of educators, lean deeply into our responsibility to society, and really embrace the responsibility that comes about with being beacons of transformation, lighthouses of transformation. I think that within our own spaces, that fear has begun to impact what we know needs to be done. And I think that if we were to look at the data and be honest with the data, we would notice that even some of these programs that we've been teaching are not going to lead these students to economic mobility. Industry is screaming at us, asking the question, why are you even still heading down this path? And we have to ask ourselves, and if we're to be mission-driven, vision-driven, we're committed to transformation, yet we're continuing to lead potentially our students into dead ends ourselves, then we are now a part of the problem and the machine, as I like to refer to it as. So I think that we need to question our agendas at our respective institutions. And if we're truly about students, we need to identify data and data points that are truly showcasing our return to the student, to make sure that we are truly being that transformation. Now, that transformation can look like workforce development. That transformation can look like being a part of the four-year pathway. But whatever it is, we have a responsibility to remove those barriers, ensure degree applicability if it is going to be the four-year path. But really ask of ourselves, what is it that we're doing? Why are we doing it? And have we truly embodied what it is that we say that we do in terms of creating student-centered institutions?
Thank you for that.
I guess my
Dr.
last.
Bradley. Oh, Dr. Harden, go for it.
I'm just jumping in on everybody's. I'll just go real quick. I guess my last, when I think about no dead ends, one aspect I really thought about was just like articulated access to building social capital and those professional networks for students and graduates. And, And I think that's really important. I think I was part of a program where we worked with a company for Black males, and the company was willing to do cash. So at a credit, they got coaching and mentoring. So at 15 credits, at these tipping points, and upon completion, $5,000. And I thought this is going to be a game changer, and what students, why they applied to this mentoring program, it was for the capital piece. This was a national consulting company that had lots of, and they're very aware that if they can get connected with people in those places and spaces and get opportunity, that it's going to lead to, they said the cash is nice, but it's getting into the places where they can network and build that capital, I think is really, and it's a role that we can play, not as with intention.
Thank you. Dr. Bradley, bring us home here a little bit, and then I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Charlotte.
And I'll be brief. I'll mention two things. One, access to support services. If I'm a student, if I'm hungry, if I don't know how I'm going to pay for daycare, the last thing I'm thinking about is college. So we want to make sure that we can give those students the access to the support services that they need, so they don't have to worry about those things. And secondly, I would say we need to make sure that we're offering flexible learning options for our students. COVID showed us that we don't have to be in class for welding. We don't have to be in class for cybersecurity. We don't have to be in class for all of these great majors that will lead to family sustaining wages. And we want to make sure that we can continue to offer those flexible learning options for students, to where if they have to work, let's give them an option of not having to be physically in a class, but still be able to get that education that they need, so they can go and get a great career once they finish that degree.
Thank you for that. I'm going to pass this back to my colleague, Charlotte. But from me, I would like to say thank you to the four of you for joining for this conversation, for your leadership, and for your provocation, and for being willing to come and have this conversation with us today. Charlotte, back to you.
Thanks, Kyle. And just to echo what Kyle said, thank you all so much. Really appreciate your comments. I think you've given us a lot to think about in terms of, how do we really build those flexible pathways with no dead ends? And think about, as we do so, how we can really keep pushing to shift burdens to institutions and systems and away from students and learners. So that's both, I think, a challenge and work that I'm really excited about, and think we have a lot of opportunity to do collectively as we think about the folks here today. So with that, just thank you to everyone for taking the time to join us today, and wanted to let you know that we are sort of planning with our Pathways to Prosperity work a series of conversations over the next several months and a year. This was our kickoff for that. So, but please do feel free to mark your calendars. We've got a few more coming up, including thinking about employer engagement in January, thinking about rural pathways in February, and really in March, taking a step back to talk about sort of what it takes to really be innovative as we go about this work. So we have a newsletter that will have all of the information about all of this coming out in the next couple of weeks. Feel free to find our website, pathwaystoprosperity.org. If you want to sign up for the newsletter, just fill out the interest form on that website, and our email address is here if you have any questions or comments for our team or want to follow up. And with that, thank you again so much for joining us today. Have a great day.